welcome back. It's been a long time. Football season is finally back, though. It's been a long summer, been a long spring. This is the 2-Point Conversion Coaches Show. As always, I am your host, Brandon Hurley with the Jefferson Herald, and I am joined by Greene County head football coach Mitch Moore. Today will be our 2018 Greene County football season preview. We'll break things down, kind of let you guys know where the football team is at and kind of look ahead at the season. So before we do that, we'd like to thank our sponsors. We, of course, are coming to you live today from Dock Stadium on the Jefferson Square. And our other sponsor is Tech Zone. So without those guys, we wouldn't be able to do this. So thank you very much. So kind of before we look ahead, we'll kind of just quickly touch on last season. The Rams were 1-8 last year, 1-6 in district play. But the biggest kind of change, besides just the players having another year of practice and whatnot, is that the Rams did drop down to 2A this year. They're in a brand new district. So there's a lot of changes just away from just kind of the players. So there's a lot to talk about today. But first of all, we'll kind of talk about just what are some of the things that you guys think have improved the most just in this offseason?
Well, I think, Brandon, the thing I harp on, you've heard me harp on it for a year now, is, our strength and conditioning is really take it to another level this last year. Our kids physically are a different looking team. We've added weight, in our lower sections. We're stronger. We're stronger in our cores. Our kids are faster. They've grown. The majority of our kids were sophomores and juniors last year, and so now those guys are juniors and seniors. And so just by maturing, they've grown. And then they've added that strength and conditioning piece to them. So that's the biggest piece, I think. We've just grown physically. But mentally, I put them through a lot. It's a hard program to go through.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say our numbers have continued to rise. I think they've kind of evened off because there's people that can't do it, and so the kids that have stuck through it have grown a lot mentally. They've become more physically and mentally prepared to play a football game for 4 quarters, and I think that's the part that's fun as me as a coach is I get a chance to see that every day, see them grow, see them how to handle adversity better than they did a year ago, and so there have been a lot of improvements. And then the kids have. Their consistency. Is we'd have good weeks and bad weeks, and at the beginning of last year, but really for about the last 2 or 3 months, we've consistently had really good weeks as a football program. So, that's really exciting to see. We had a great fall camp. We had good 3 weeks of practice and preparation and leadership that has really put us in a pretty good position here coming into Friday's game.
So I know just from talking to you in the past, you guys have kind of everything's more smoother, right? Just between the coaches and the players.
No
Talk about what that's been like, just that difference from practice last year and practice this year.
Well, to me, it starts with my staff. I've been really fortunate to have some great leaders and great men added to my staff this year. Todd Hansen and Chris Connor and Bob Allen has come on as full-time coaches, and obviously Coach Jaskey, Coach Morton's now taken over just the 9th grade program. Coach Westhoff, and we've added Coach Osendorf, who also coached baseball. He's now helping with our junior high, and so I've just added pieces to the puzzle. Coach Beekman, who's now the head wrestling coach, is gotten better as a football coach as well and knows the kids better. And so I think the continuity within the staff, just for me as the head football coach, I'm around great men and great leaders every day that makes you want to do things the right way. And our kids see that. And we talk about it all the time. I've worked our staff pretty hard. Our kids got to be there at 6 in the morning, and in the summer, our staff's there at 5:30 in the morning. This morning we were there at 5 o'clock. And on a Wednesday, well, they've got full-time jobs too that they've got to go work. So, but I've kind of challenged our staff, like if you want to get these kids to another level, us as a staff have to be more, more on the same page. And having the guys that have come on board the last couple months, and I've seen our staff kind of come together, and really we've laid a good blueprint for what we feel is going to be a really good season.
So looking kind of ahead towards the season, just as a whole, what do you think are some of the strengths of this team going in?
Well, you talk about the best football player. Tyler Miller is as good as there is at that position in the state of Iowa. I saw there was something in the paper that he wasn't in the top 10. If Tyler Miller is not one of the top 10 best football players in Iowa, then we've got some pretty good football players. But he's a specimen. He's a special kid. He's really changed. He's grown a lot.
Yeah, he told me he gained 40, 50 pounds.
He's gained 45 pounds, but even mentally, he's more of a leader, and he's helping our younger guys, and he's got a really consistent practice habits, which makes him even better than he was a year ago. The game of football, he loves football. And so it's really important to him, and he takes all the little things to get better every day at practice, and he takes the coaching and the learning, does a great job at that. So he's obviously a key piece of this year's football team. Our D-line with Bryce Hoyle and Brock and Joe Patterson, who's a really, really athletic interior guy, and then, of course, Miller. Those four are you'd take them any year that you're a head football coach. You take those guys on a D-line because, for one, their athleticism. All four of them are athletic. Number two, the way they work. They're all very studious in the way they attack the weight room every day, the way they attack practice, and then they're all really competitive. None of them like to lose. So those four are really, I think, going to be a key component to our team this year on that D-line. And then, our back end at wide receiver. You talk about some talent back there. Starts with Carter Morton is a hell of an athlete. He's a track runner. He's a good basketball player. I don't think he knows it yet, but I think his best sport's football. I mean, the guy can play safety. He's a heck of a receiver. So he's a really good athlete that I think has a chance to play at the college level. Xavier Hayes is a really good athlete who's going to play a little bit at wide receiver too this year for us. Lance Hughes, pretty darn good athlete for our level. Okay, he's another wide receiver. You throw in Nick Breon, you throw in Will Hanson, who will get some time at wide receiver too this year, and then you've got Denhart, who's kind of the wild card, who you can play at any position. He showed at times last year he can play quarterback. He can certainly catch the ball out of the backfield. He can line up in the slot and play receiver, and he can run the ball. So you add all those guys in the mix, and then you put a Tyler Teeples in there who can flat out run. He's not as physically gifted as some big tight ends, but in 2A you're not going to see a bunch that are huge. Those guys on the perimeter, I'd take those guys against any 2A team in the state. You got to put it together, and you've got to become a team. But you just measure them on paper, talent-wise, that's a pretty good group.
Yeah, so it sounds like you guys got quite a bit of athleticism.
Yeah.
So on the flip side of that, what are some areas that you think you guys need to kind of shore up going into the first game of the season?
Well, Clay. Our two linebackers, Breon and Clay, will be new playing together. Clay is Clay Smith. Certainly, he's a captain of ours. He's our leader on defense. There's no question about that. He's the one that makes the calls. He's the one that everyone kind of rallies around. And then Nick Breon, we've moved from corner into linebacker. So I think, Clay will have the first time as him really being he'll be calling defense and doing all that, and then you've got Nick Breon moving inside. So I don't think that it's something we need to get better at. It's just we're improving there, right? Inexperienced at that position. And then we've got our right guard on the O-line and center. I think Brandon Hoyle will be a guy that he'll have his first varsity snaps, but boy, that guy's had just a tremendous offseason. I didn't know if this is where he'd be at this point a year ago, and that kid has been absolutely unbelievable in practice for us. He's just another guy. He's consistent in his work habits, and so it shows on the practice field. He's a really consistent football player. And again, it's not that it's something I don't feel we're very good at. It's just inexperience at that position. And then Riley will be getting his, really only his second start as a varsity quarterback. But I think you guys will find out real quick why he's playing quarterback. He's a talented kid. He can throw the ball. He can really spin the ball. He's not big in stature, of course, but he's got great ball handling skills. He played the zone read really good. And Brent Riley's a lot faster than people think. He doesn't look it just because he's a littler kid, but he can throw the ball. He's really developed in the weight room. He's got a strong core, and he's got as good as ball skills as anybody at that position at our level. So, again, those three positions, areas, inexperience, I certainly don't think they're going to be a issue with our team. They're just guys that you
don't know what's going to happen.
You hope that they keep and continue and progress the way they have for the last year.
Yeah, so go back to Brent Riley. Just from watching him a little bit last year, I noticed he also has a really good pocket presence.
Yep.
He's one of those guys that can move away from the rush but still keep his eyes downfield. How big of an advantage is to have a guy like that doing that?
Brent Riley's one of the favorite kids that I coach, and just for the reason that he's never too up and never too down. His teammates, tremendous. He gives tremendous respect to the coaches and his teammates. They vote him a captain as a junior.
Really?
Yeah. So he's a captain of our football team, and that Brent is the same kid every single day. He'll make a bad throw, he'll come back, make a good throw, and he stays level-headed. He does it in baseball. You could see it with him in the off season in strength conditioning. Even if he had a day where he didn't get the squat that he wanted to do, he'd come back the next day and get right back up to where he needs to be. And he made a play in our scrimmage that, I kind of yelled at him and he said, "My bad," and he's one of those guys that always takes the ownership. Our kids highly respect him. And so I can't wait to see him grow these next 2 years, because I think he can be the engine to this thing and really make it.
On that defense, and I know you're really happy where it is right now.
Yeah.
But it's hard to ignore the fact that last year teams ran all over you guys. So what are you doing to kind of reverse that notion and kind of help stop that run?
Well, I think one of the things we've developed some depth at the D-line. So I talked about those 4 guys that I think are going to be a pivotal key to our success this year, but we've got some guys behind them. Caleb Hoyle, I know we keep saying Hoyle, but there's 3 of them, and all 3 of them are going to play varsity.
The third one,
Yeah, Caleb Hoyle, Gage Michelson, a guy who's had a tremendous spring this spring and summer. He's really put on 20 pounds, gotten stronger, and the physicality in him has come out a lot more. So Gage Michelson, Caleb Hoyle, and then Cole Betts, another guy who played on the O-line for us last year, will play on the O-line for us some this year too. Those guys have created some depth for us. So I think one thing that will help us stop the run is, number one, we're not going to face the O-lineman that we did last year, and number two, we've got created some more depth within our program, and so we've got some guys that can give those guys a blow when they're tired. Last year, you didn't want to take Bryce Hoyle out for any reason ever. Joe Patterson wasn't quite ready to play yet. Now Joe Patterson's a starter, and we've got Gage Michelson and Caleb Hoyle and some of those other guys, where we've got Joe and Bryce as the starters, but all 5 of those guys can play interiorly. And then we've got obviously our two bookends that I think are pretty special in Brock and Tyler. So I think within our D-line, we're going to be able to shore up the run a little bit. And then, Clint Denhart's playing a weak safety for us, and
really?
Will Hansen's going to play a strong safety for us. And both those guys will be guys that will be in the box. We're kind of a 4-2-5, but they'll be guys that will be in the box looking to stop the run. And then, we got Austin Delp and Carter Morton playing safety too, and both those guys are downhill safeties. They want to attack the football, and because they've got good range to cover people in the back end. So, in 2A football, there is a little more emphasis on running the ball. And our guys know that, and we've created a little more stout box than maybe we had last year. And then just fundamentally, we've become better football players, so we can recognize things faster and all those things. But excited the way that our defense has really come together, and we're able to do some of that stuff because I believe we've got some pretty special corners in High Note and Hayes and a Hughes, and if Morton plays over there a little bit, that can just shut people down one-on-one. Not very many guys are going to be able to get away from Xavier Hayes. He was an all-district safety last year who's now going to play corner at about 190 pounds, who can run, who can beat you up on the line of scrimmage. He can shut down a side of the field by just putting him on it. Gives you more guys to get in the run game.
Yeah, and for the most part, your pass defense last year was pretty strong.
Yeah.
You had 11 interceptions, which was top 25 in the state in 3A. So once again, it probably should be strong like you're talking about. So that would be huge.
So I feel our secondary is really good because it's those skill players again. As I told you, I think our D-line is, just because of the depth we've created, we're going to be able to play more people. We're going to be fresh more often than not. And just the sheer notion that our kids have had more experience this year than they did last year is going to help us out.
So talking about that depth, how much of an advantage is it to have this much depth dropping down to 2A with other teams more similar to your size?
Well, hopefully week 4 we're sitting in here and we'll be talking about our depth, But as I go into it right now, I feel our depth is going to be a key component in us winning football games. We have worked tremendously hard in the weight room, and I know I've overstated that, but it's the truth. I mean, you just look at the numbers and you look at the times we've lifted and how much time and energy we've put into it. We're in that upper echelon of what people in the state are doing, and because that's something I really believe in. And so through the kids' preparation, we've gained confidence, and that depth is going to help us because our kids can always play 100%, knowing, heck, I can go take 2 plays. I told Trey Hino just this yesterday. I said, Trey, if you got to come out, you got to come tell me, Coach, I want to be back in 3 plays. In 3 plays, you'll be back in the game. But you got to come out because we got to have your guys playing 100% because we got guys behind you that can play at 100% that are on our level, all on the same level. So our guys know that we're not going to take you out, sit you for a quarter, take you out for a couple plays, get a guy in, and get you back in. So our guys trust in each other, trust in the coaching staff that, hey, we're going to get the right guys in at the right time, and everybody's going to get an opportunity to help a football team win. So depth's going to be big. Yeah, and I think you make a good point about that strength and conditioning. Last year, you only had about 6 months with those guys to kind of rework their whole mindset and regime, and so now they have 18 months under your program. So I think you're right, it will make a difference for people that aren't kind of aware of it. Yeah, and really I got here in April, and from April all the way until the beginning of June, it was kind of a trial phase. I was here twice a week. I was only here in the mornings. I wasn't a full-time AD at that time either. And now it's been a consistent thing every single day. I said this the other night at the pep rally, but that Monday after the Friday that we lost to Ballard, we had a full weight room. And, that's an impressive thing when you've got a bunch of kids who just didn't have a successful record-wise year, but they already believe in the process. This is what it's going to take to have a good football team, and we've got to put the work in the weight room. So I think it'll pay dividends.
So I know you mentioned all the options that you have on offense this year, and at times last year it was kind of a struggle for you guys to score. But part of that was some of the really tough defenses that you played last year. But also, kind of this year, are there some things that you're going to do different to kind of be able to take advantage of the opportunities your defense gives you?
Well, I think a lot of times last year, from the inexperience and from the everything that was so new and the play calling and how to get lined up and what the tempo we wanted to go, if you look at those games and break it down, in particular Perry last year, we beat ourselves. Bad snaps, penalties, malalignment, things that weren't going in our favor. That you got to have a bunch of things going and all aligned the same direction for you to be able to win a football game anyway. Well, when you're doing those things that aren't right, your penalties and turning the ball over and doing things that are uncharacteristic of a good football team, that hurts you. So I think number one is just sheer up those things. We've got to get better at taking care of the ball. We've got to get better at eliminating penalties. We've got to get good snaps. There should be no room for bad snaps. We snap 1,000 times a week. We got to get the snap. Our guys got to get lined up faster, and I think if we can get teams on their heels more, and rip off 5-yard run, 10-yard run, get a pass for 15 yards, and just keep teams on their heels more, our offense will be more productive. And Coach Jaski's done a really good job, kind of manifesting that this last 3 weeks as he's kind of taken over that duty as organizing the offense, and we've looked a lot better. And again, I know it sounds like a broken record here, but it's year 2, so our guys are more familiar with our play calling than they were last year. There was a lot of week 7, 8, and 9, Brandon, there was times our guys didn't get lined up fast enough because it just didn't register that this is where I got to go. This is what I'm doing on this motion. From this summer on, we ran 1,000 plays this summer, 1,000 plays as an offense. So going into fall camp, we knew where to line up, how to run the play. We just had to execute. Yeah,
so you mentioned at the top of the show about Clint Denhart. He's going to be kind of your wild card guy on offense.
Yeah.
For maybe those people that aren't aware, how valuable of an asset is he on offense, and what are some of his strengths outside of being a quarterback?
Well, Clint is a tremendous talent. I mean, he's a kid he's a stocky kid. He's strong. He's durable. He's tough. He can catch the ball. He can run, and like I said, and you can put him back there and he can throw the ball. So that's a huge asset for us. For one, if teams want to try to defend us guarding us from a personnel standpoint, they want to try to personnel and match their defense to what our personnel is. They can't. Because we can put Clint in the backfield, we can put Clint out in slot, we can use Clint as a tight end. So if the teams are trying to say, okay, they've got Clint in the game now, they're going to be in this formation. Well, we can get in 15 different formations with Clint in the ball game. So Clint provides us, and then teams are going to, they're going to key Clint at times, and so we can put him to the weak side or the strength and run to him or run away from him. It's going to be hard to dissect what we're doing before the plays run just by trying to personnel us. So it'll be big.
I guess you've mentioned the depth and a lot of kind of people that can rotate in and out, but are there any starting spots leading up 2 days into it? Are there any starting spots up for grabs, or do you pretty much have everybody set in and who's going to start?
No, yeah, we know who's starting and where. I think I kind of want to preface this by saying, I know there's 22 guys that start, 11 on offense, 11 on defense, but you look at a guy like Tyler Teeples, might not be in our 10 personnel when we start the game, but Tyler Teeples is a guy that's going to play tight end for us. Colby Kafer is a back that we haven't even mentioned yet. He's a tough, physical, great track runner. Colby Kafer's going to carry the rock a lot for us this year, So is he going to come out on the first snap and play running back? No, it'll probably be Clint. But Colby Kafer will have as many runs as Clint does during the game. Clint will move to receiver, and we'll have Colby in there. And so I think there's a lot of spots that have some depth, but there isn't a spot right now that I say, no, there's nobody there that we can fill it. So that's exciting, and I think there's some spots that certainly there'll be competition all year long, that if a guy doesn't come to play and come to practice, that by Friday of the next week, if someone's playing better and someone's on a roll and someone's hot at that time, that they're going to be the starter. So, but no, I don't feel there's any position on the field that man, what do we do at this position? So that's encouraging.
Yeah, that's very encouraging.
Yeah.
So moving ahead to kind of the schedule, it's a little bit different than it was last year. Last year you had 7 districts games. So this year the district's a little smaller. There's only 5 district games, so which leaves 4 non-district games.
Yeah.
So let's start with that. The non-district schedule. How do you see that shaping out? Are you kind of happy with how that settled out, and do you think that'll kind of help you guys leading into the?
Well, sure. I think I think it sets up pretty good for us. We are 3 games on the road. I don't know why we're not going 2-2, but that's a little bizarre to me. But we go to Perry, so I think the Calbo game, which will be a widely publicized game for everybody. I think the excitement you can already feel it building, which is awesome. And then we'll come home and play a good Nevada team, a team that I think I think will set the tone for the season, and obviously game 1 is the most important, but I think that Nevada game's big, I mean, that's a game that it's a program coming in that won some games last year and then will continue to get better. And then we go to Saydell, don't know a lot about them. I think, like you said, they'll fluctuate in their roster size and you never know exactly who they've got. And then we've got the Gilbert game, who we led for 3.5 quarters of that game last year. And our kids, they're hungry to get back to that game, I can promise you, on week 4. But we're not looking ahead to anything other than Perry right now. But as you look at those 4 non-district games in the offseason, I think you feel good about, hey, I don't think there's anybody in there that we feel is head and shoulders better than us. And I don't feel like we're just playing somebody that's just going to lay down and let us beat them. So there's going to create some competition in those 4 games and see what kind of team we are. And but I think there's also the schedule kind of can set us up for some success going into district play.
So, moving ahead to district play, we talked about the district schedule a few months ago. But for those not familiar, Greene County's in District 9 this year, and they're joined by Kemper. It is
Kemper, Shenandoah, Red Oak, OABCIG, and Atlantic.
Yeah, I knew that. I just have all these other districts jumbled in my head.
But
as we've said before, kind of Kemper's kind of that team up there that's kind of been a traditionally strong program. So last year you guys played them pretty tight. It was 21-14 in the opener. So what do you think, I guess just breaking down the districts real quickly, how do you see that kind of district working out, and who do you think are the teams that you need to catch?
Until somebody beats Kemper, they're the king, right? And so, I think Kemper's the team that we certainly have kind of pegged as we think is probably going to be the best team in our district, and they've proven they've earned that right to be the best team. Atlantic's going to be a good football team. I think they're coached pretty well. They've got some speed on the edge. They're similar to us, 3A going down to 2A, and then OABCIG is a team that went 6-3 last year. They lost a running back, I think was pretty special, their coach up there does a good job of them running the football. I mean, they know how to run the football, and they can run the football when it's cold out, and they can run it when it's hot out, and they're going to run it in the rain. I mean, they run the football. And so we've got to, like you said, we weren't sure in stopping the run last year. And so that's a team that's going to challenge us when they come into town in week 9. But, I think we match up with everybody. Again, I think what we've done in the offseason, I think, doesn't rival very many people. And so if we can continue to work like we did the offseason, these 3 weeks of fall camp, and then take every week like we prepared this week for Perry, I think we can put together a pretty good game plan to win some football games and hopefully compete for a district title.
So flashing back just a little bit to last year, you guys we talked about it a ton, playing a really tough schedule.
Yeah.
But how much does that help factor in dropping down to 2A and playing so many tough opponents last year?
Well, it's one of the things I'm going to talk about with our guys tomorrow, Brandon, before the game, is just that, what we went through in the last year from a coaching staff and our players, that kind of schedule, that only made us better. And the what we're going to feel, the excitement we're going to feel when we turn this thing around and start winning some games, the pain of last year, it's going to feel better to have gone through that, and it made us stronger. And I said this last year, and I'll probably continue to say this, and as long as I coach high school football, to have a schedule like that, you're just not going to have. You're not going to play 7 teams that are ranked in the top 8 during a year. That just doesn't happen. Or it hasn't happened to my knowledge. So, but it's created, a great experience for our kids, and those guys that played in those games and knew what the physicality and the preparation it took to win football games against high quality opponents. It was a little similar to when I was at Wisconsin Whitewater. Before we played Mount Union and were winning national titles, we played them in about 2001, 2002, and said, that's what the top is. That's what it takes to be a champion. We knew we weren't there yet. Well, what do we got to do to get there? I think last year for us, we played the DCGs, and you played the Webster Cities, and you played the Ballards of the world, and you go, okay, look at how they prepared for the game. Look at their focus and intensity in the pregame. Look at the way that they were one unit on the offense, on the defense, on the special teams. That's what championship caliber programs do. And our guys got a front row seat to that for about 7 games last year. And so, Harlan played in the state championship game. That's a championship level program. And so our guys got to sit back. It was painful at times last year, but you got to sit back and see. That's what championship programs do. And we've kind of taken a little bit from each one of those games and kind of, made that our own kind of mantra for the season. And I think it'll certainly pay dividends.
So we're only 2 days from opening night. You guys play Perry at Perry for the cowbell. How is it an advantage, do you think, to play a longtime rival like that at the first game of the season?
I don't know. I think it's an advantage in terms of off-season motivation. Because all off season, I know my thing is that we don't wear blue. We don't wear blue around school, and I know I noticed that right when I walked in. I took my blue straw out and threw it over there. But so it's a thing that you use as motivation. Ohio State, Michigan, right? Iowa State, Alabama, Auburn. When you work all season long, and your rival, they're the team that you're striving to really, beat every single day. And so to play them first, there's a lot of motivation, and I think us losing that game in overtime last year, like our kids, we don't want that. We don't want that embarrassment again, and not embarrassment because it was Perry. Just we don't want to lose like that in that fashion. And so it helped us all off season kind of know, hey, we got to get the cowbell back. It's in the wrong place right now. So
speaking of the Perry game, what do you see as some keys of coming out with a victory on Friday and starting out the season 1-0?
Well, I think the first and foremost, we have to do what we did last Friday, and we got to match that type of intensity. I mean, we came out as a hungry football team. We had 11 guys that were playing relentless football on defense, flying to the ball, wanting to hit people, wanting to be physical. And then we've got to be able, like I said last year, is really handle adversity. Handle when they get a first down. How are we going to react to that? Handle if they catch a ball for 14 yards. How are we going to react to that? What happens when we drop a ball? How are we going to react to that? But first and foremost, we've got to play with an incredible amount of intensity and passion and excitement. Like that's who we are. That's how our staff is. That's who our kids are. We do talk and we do like to hoot and holler and do all those things because we love to play football. We love to be around the game of football. At times last year, I felt like sometimes the air was let out of our sails. Even if you noticed it, you were on the sidelines, you kind of felt like, man, where's the juice? But last Friday when we played North Polk, it was a scrimmage. There was juice. It was electric from start to finish, and that was a scrimmage atmosphere. So if our guys play with that kind of electricity and excitement and juice, I feel we'll be a hard football team to beat. And so I think that's my challenge to those guys is we've worked this hard. Don't hold things back now. This is when it's fun. This is when you get to go showcase what you've done. So that's a huge key to victory. And then we've got to establish the run game. Like we have got to run the football. Our O-line's got to say we want to physically dominate their D-line. And our 2 running backs, Colby Kafer and Clint Denhart, need to impose their will on the linebackers of Perry. And they need to get the ball. They need to run downhill. And then because I think we're going to be really good in the pass game. I think Brent, his calm demeanor, he's got a great arm. Our receivers, we know what their role is. They're going to make some big plays. But I want to see us dominate the line of scrimmage. I want to see us physically handle their fronts and their blitzing backers, which they'll do a lot. So that's what I'm looking for. Just play with some incredible passion, be really physical, and play with a bunch of energy.
So last question here, just kind of this is your opportunity to kind of pitch it to the community for people maybe that have lost a little steam from last year's season 1-8. Why do you encourage them to come back out this year, and why should they follow the team this year?
Well, I think more than anything is that our men have really been consistent since the time I got here. They've continued to be good community members. They've continued to give back to the community. They've continued to do things right, and that's what this whole thing's about. High school football is trying to build young men and young boys into men. And our guys have done that process about as good as any team I've been around. So regardless, take out the game of football and just say, hey, let's go support these young men that have given everything they have when they've got a whole bunch of other things going on in their life or a whole bunch of other things they could do. And they've dedicated themselves to a cause to get better at something. It's going to help them down the road in life in anything they do. So that's number one. I think we, as a community member, let's go support our Rams. I think that's what we should do. And then the second thing, Brandon, is I think we're going to be a pretty darn good football team. I really do. I think that we've got some special talent in some areas that would be fun to watch. We've got a kid in Tyler Miller that I don't know that we'll ever have a kid like
Yeah,
that
how
in
often
Greene
you get to
County
watch
again.
a
You're going to watch
prospect like that,
watch one of the best players in high school football get a chance to play every week. And then we've got some really good pieces around him that I think can make us kind of a special football team. So I just encourage anybody that's watching and any of our people in the community, get out and support these guys. And then I think let's not forget we've got a 9th grade game going on before. We've got a bunch of cheerleaders that are going to be there, that help with our community support. And football and Friday night, it's about the pageantry, and it's about the towns and the communities. It's not just about the X's and O's that's going on a football field. But I think the more people are there, the more people are involved. It just creates a better atmosphere for school. It creates a better atmosphere for your community. And when you've got a winning football team, you ask the principals and superintendents around the state. Those teams that win football games early on in the year, you're going to have a better school year all year long. That's just the reality, because it creates a good vibe, and your kids are focused and they're aligned with the behaviors that you think are kind of doing things right. And so when the football team's doing that, people follow. So come support us. I think we're going to have a good football team. I'm really excited, and I'm really excited for these kids who've put in so much work to get some success.
Yeah, I know for one, I'm excited. Football's back, and we're just a few days away, so I'm pumped for it. So once again, thanks a ton, Mitch, for joining us. Good luck on Friday, and thanks everybody for checking us out. We'll be back again next week.